in that Congress didn't need 9/11 to pass the Patriot Act. They would just pass it because they can. And so they didn't need a catastrophe. I will say that there may have been some thinking at the White House at the time, especially in the Office of the Vice President, OVP, where George Tenet was shouting that a terrible attack is coming, and Dick Clark, the terrorism czar, is shouting that a terrible attack is coming, and Condi Rice, the national security advisor, and Dick Cheney are saying, no, we don't care about that. It's China, China, China. They knew we were going to be attacked. So it's not that the CIA facilitated it. I think it's that the White House decided not to proactively try to prevent it. And it wasn't to get the Patriot Act passed. It was to make a lot of defense contractors very rich and to wage war and overthrow Saddam Hussein. On the morning of September 11th, we were ordered to evacuate. We were ordered twice. The first time the cops came by, nobody budged. The second time the cops said, if you don't evacuate, you will be arrested. And so the chief of counterterrorism said, everybody just go, just go. It took me 2 hours to get out of my parking space. It took me another 2 hours to get half the distance to my apartment. I lived 7 miles from the agency. I got 3.5 miles in a total of 4 hours, and I just abandoned my car. And I walked the rest of the way. Well, as I'm walking, I could see the Pentagon burning. And when I got to the head of the Teddy Roosevelt Bridge, that's where I would make my right turn to go to my apartment, I saw the Deputy National Security Advisor with no shoes. The Deputy National Security Advisor, who is supposed to be like underneath the White House, protecting us right now and trying to come up with our response, he ran for his life without his shoes. And I started crying. I couldn't believe this was happening. And that's all I kept saying to myself was, how could this happen? How could this happen? And so I got to my apartment. My girlfriend met me there. She later became my wife, also a CIA officer. We went to the roof of my building. We watched the Pentagon burn for a while. And I said, let's go try to donate blood. So we found what do you call it? Bloodmobile. And they told us the line is 24 hours long. We just can't take you. And I said to her, we got to get back to work. This is ridiculous. And so we walked the 3.5 miles back to my car, drove across the median, went back to headquarters, and then I stayed there for the next 4 days. Everybody at the CIA was aware of the reporting that the CIA had been responsible for the arrival of massive amounts of cocaine in the United States, which eventually made their way to Los Angeles and to San Francisco, Oakland, and which became the crack epidemic. We were all aware of it. I'm going to say fully 50% believed it. I believe it. And of course, now, historically, we know that that was true. The CIA facilitated the arrival of cocaine. A worse kept secret even was the Afghan poppy crop. I've told this story before, but many years after I left the CIA, I was with the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. I was the senior investigator. And so I flew out to Afghanistan to do a study on the heroin poppy crop. And to make a long story short, the CIA was facilitating the cultivation of heroin poppy. Afghanistan, under American control, produced 93% of the world's heroin. So I wrote all this up. And before I gave it to John Kerry, who was the chairman of the committee, I sent it to a friend of mine at DEA. And I said, buddy, take a look at this and tell me what you think. So he reads the report and he calls me back and he says, buddy, you know you're not going to get this published, right? And I said, why not? And he said, Afghanistan produces 93% of the world's heroin. Almost all of that heroin goes to Iran and Russia. And we want them to be addicted to heroin. It weakens their societies. it makes them easier to dominate. We want them to all be drug addicts. And sure enough, I didn't get the paper published. Senator Kerry killed it. But fast forward to right now. Our country's in the midst of a fentanyl epidemic. Also, I recently heard of the military moving a nuclear reactor to Hill Air Force Base. I'm wondering if you could talk more on that subject. Thanks for all you've done for the American people and wishing all the best on the pardon. Thank you for that. Thanks from a Salt Lake City native. Well, Nathan, good questions. So this thing in the Utah desert, this monstrosity in the Utah desert has been built by and is owned by NSA, the National Security Agency. NSA has built this thing for its massive capacity for memory. So they have bragged that there is enough memory at this new NSA storage facility in the Utah desert to hold every phone call, every text message, every email, and every voicemail from every American for the next 500 years. 500 years. Now, think about this at the same time you're thinking about a book called 3 Felonies a Day by Dr. Harvey Silverglate, a professor of law at Harvard University. Dr. Silverglate argues that we are so overly criminalized, so overly regulated in this country that the average American on the average day going about his or her normal business commits 3 felonies every single day. Well, what that means is if they want to get you, they're going to get you. And there's nothing you could do to protect yourself. Now, with this situation in the Utah desert, if they decide, I don't like Nathan Farr, so we're going to go through his emails and his text messages and his voicemails, and we're going to figure out what else he's done. Well, again, we're so overly criminalized, so overly regulated, they'll find something to charge you with. And I think that's what this is for. It's not about keeping the country safe. You don't need somebody's information for 500 years to keep the country safe. Without a warrant, by the way. I think this is an affront to our civil liberties. I think this is an attack on every single American. And we've done nothing about it. So that troubles me very, very much.
The kind of casual cruelty and violence in the CIA that you describe, I haven't seen any meaningful attempt to stop it.
Oh, no, I agree very strongly.
Do you believe that the CIA has hurt other American citizens?
Yes, I'm sure of it. Yes.
What about physically?
Well, there are 2 very well-documented cases where Barack Obama used a drone to murder Anwar al-Awlaki.
Yep.
And whether you like the man's politics or not, he was an American citizen who had never been charged with a crime. And then a week later, Obama droned his 16-year-old son and 14-year-old nephew who were sitting in a coffee shop having a cup of tea. Also, American citizens who had never been charged with a crime, and they were children. So yeah, the CIA does all kinds of things like that.
What about domestically?
Well, I keep thinking back to Eric Holder's testimony before the Senate Armed Services Committee when Rand Paul asked him, does the president have the legal authority to murder an American on U.S. soil? Well, Senator, just answer the question. It's a yes or no question. Yes, he has the authority. Now, has he done that? We didn't know. But the Attorney General of the United States said that the president can murder an American citizen in the United States if the president believes that he presents a clear and present danger to the national security. That's sick. It's
unbelievable.
It's anti-constitutional. Not just unconstitutional. It's anti-constitutional.
Do people who work at the CIA have a sense that maybe they're not serving good?
Generally, no. Generally, these are, at the working level, these are hardworking, really smart, patriotic people.
Some of them are really smart. I can confirm that.
Really smart. At the upper levels, they believe they're the smartest people in the room. They're smarter than whoever happens to be president at any given time. And if they don't like this president, they just wait him out. He'll be gone in 4 years. They'll still be there in their still senior positions, and they're going to do exactly what they want to do. This is why they panicked when Ronald Reagan named an outsider as the deputy director for operations.
Boy.
Remember?
Do I remember?
They lost it because they were like, oh my God, okay, you appoint your campaign manager, the director, that's one thing. But now operations, you're going to bring a friend from Wall Street or wherever he was an attorney? Yeah, I would.
I think that's when they called in Bob Woodward to blow them up, right? The former naval intel officer, Bob Woodward.
Oh, I'll tell you.
Not the only time Bob Woodward has been called in by the national security state to destroy Americans.
When I was the deputy director, the executive assistant to the deputy director for operations, I had just finished writing a cable. I had this lovely private office, and it looked out past the secretary into the hallway. So I finished writing, and I leaned back like this in my chair, and I happened to be looking at the hall, and Bob Woodward walked by. And I said to the secretary, was that Bob Woodward that just walked by the office? And she said, yeah. And I said, without a security escort, like he owns the place. And she said, you didn't see the memo? I said, what memo? She said, George Tenet. She said, George sent a memo saying that Woodward's writing a book and we're all ordered to cooperate with him. I said, I'm not talking to Bob Woodward. I couldn't believe it.
He's just a great reporter. Come on, John.
He's free to
just walk around. Shoe leather. He's not.
You're talking about people that have been undercover or deep cover for decades, and he's just walking the halls.
He's not an instrument of the government. He's a counterbalance. He's a check against their overreach. He's a journalist.
They're going to run with that.
It's so absurd.
I was shocked.
The story that you told about the fake Japanese diplomat trying to set you up is remarkable. That's a remarkable story.
Sick.
It is sick. It's unbelievable that they would do that to an American citizen, particularly one with a demonstrated record of serving the country at personal risk. So, but outrage aside, it does sort of reframe your understanding of how things actually work. That happened to you. That's a real thing.
Yes.
Provable. And you said that it had, in fact, changed your view of how things actually worked. And you'd reassessed your understanding of things that had happened in American history, and that maybe they're not exactly what they seem to be.
That's right.
Can you go into a little more depth about what you're thinking now?
The short version is I have come to believe very strongly that Ronald Reagan was right when he said that government is the problem. It's not the solution to the problem. He was right. He recognized it, and the rest of us failed to see it. So now when I hear about standoffs, let's say, between American citizens and the Bureau of Land Management, for example.
Yes.
Or ATF or DEA, I no longer believe what is reported in the media. I no longer believe the strategic leaks that come from whatever bureau or agency to spin the story. I've gotten to the point where I'm obsessed with doing my own investigations.
Yes.
And I read all source material because the truth has to be out there somewhere. I just feel like I have to put it together for myself. So now when we talk about the Kennedy assassinations or RFK, or MLK, or as we said earlier, Ruby Ridge or Waco, whatever it is, I default to doubting the government account.
But you worked for the government then.
I was at the CIA at the time, and it was on every TV in the CIA. And I remember looking at it, not really having an opinion, and my boss saying, well, it's about time they finally moved on that operation.
So what was that? Boy, that's really a forgotten moment in American history. So there was a religious sect known as the Branch Davidians, so that's what we called them.
That's right.
A guy called David Koresh, that was his cult name anyway. And they were accused of mistreating children.
Yes.
Which maybe they were, I have no idea.
And hoarding weapons.
And hoarding weapons. And they were surrounded by federal agents at their compound in Waco, Texas. And that standoff culminated in a shootout in which federal agents were killed.
Yes.
And most of the occupants of that compound were burned to death.
I think it was something like 27 of them. And half of them were children.
Yeah.
Like young children.
Yeah. I think it was maybe more than 27.
More than 27?
Yeah. It was
a lot.
It was awful. But what was it? Was that more than what we were told it was, do you think?
Well, the spin was this was a dangerous lunatic and he had to be stopped before he used those guns to go out and kill people. The truth of the matter is, you're allowed to buy as many guns as you want.
Yeah, I've proven that. Yeah, I have.
Good.
You're not allowed to buy guns because you're a convicted felon.
I'm a convicted felon.
And you've done nothing wrong. And I really hope you receive that presidential pardon soon.
Thank you. And on top of losing my gun, I lost my pension. The Obama Justice Department seized my federal pension.
Why?
20 years of proud service, $770,000. I'm going to have to work until the day I die. Only a pardon.
How could you have worked at CIA for all those years and not wound up rich?
Yeah, right.
I have to say that is the story that no one ever tells, and I just know it from my just personal life, just living in D.C. my whole life. They're all rich. Have you noticed this?
They are all rich.
Why are there all these former CIA officers who are rich?
Some of them, get enormous book advances. Others make this odd transition into venture capital or consulting or butts in the seats kind of, Booz Allen style firms. A lot of them go overseas and stay overseas. So the CIA pays for everything. The only thing you pay for is your phone bill. And they just invest for 30 years and come out with plenty of money.